There have been plenty of stories about what took place on September 11th, 2001, like the government planned it all, or that it was bombs that made the Twin Towers collapse, or that it was former President Bush's fault. But regardless to whom is to blame, nothing will change the series of events that took place on that day. I was able to encounter not one, but two individuals that are able to share their stories with me about the tragic event that anyone who is old enough to remember will never forget. According to CNN.com, it was 8:45 when the first plane flying out of Boston flew and crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. At 9:03, the second plane, also flying out of Boston, flew into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. At 9:43, American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. At 10:05, the South Tower collapsed, followed by the North Tower at 10:28, both plummeting into the streets below. At 1:27 p.m., a state of emergency was declared by the city of Washington. Josh lives in New York, and the first thing he remembers was walking to his high school auditorium because his teachers were going on strike. It wasn't too long after the first plane hit that he found out about the Twin Towers. He just thought it was a small turboplane that lost control. When the second plane hit, Josh began to get nervous. Bianca resides in the D.C. area. She remembers the day like it was yesterday. It was her second period government class when a teacher rushes in to turn the TV onto the Channel 4 news. It was 9:05, she said, as she watched the tragic news unfold. Shortly after, she found out that the Pentagon was hit. Josh became overwhelmed with so many questions. What's going on? Why? How? Who is doing this? His dad works in the area, and his cousin works at the World Trade Center. He tried to contact his dad and his cousin, but the lines were busy and a lot of lines were down. His dad didn't get home till almost 6 because the transit was at a pause. Later, luckily, found out that his cousin made it out of the World Trade Center. Bianca was in a world of shock. Her mother works minutes away from the Pentagon. A lot of her friends' parents work at the Pentagon. Later, she found out that one of her closest friends' mother died that day. I'm sure you can imagine what these two were feeling upon the news. What's worse is how they felt after the attacks and how it's affected them since. Josh says that the city of New York is cleaned up now, that you could see straight into New Jersey now that the towers are not there. It's an eerie feeling without them there. His cousin still has panic attacks and nightmares from the tragic event, from watching people jump 100 floors up and hitting the pavement. It's hard to discuss it with him. Bianca is still in disbelief that the incident even took place. She's reminded every day when she drives to work because of the memorial that was built in front of the Pentagon that represents the 3 planes that hit the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. She went to a friend's mother's funeral, and it was by far one of the hardest things she ever had to do. Through the changes and effects of the tragic event, they've managed to overcome all the sadness, but their final thoughts differ. Josh blames Bush, where Bianca blames whoever was involved. Josh feels that whatever threats that were made should have been taken seriously, and that none of this would have never happened. Bianca believes that whoever wanted to harm us was going to harm us regardless. Nothing could have prevented this. Throughout all the rumors about the government playing it all, Josh doesn't disagree nor agrees for lack of credible evidence. Where Bianca, she feels that the government would do no such thing, not to its own people. It's amazing how two people from two different areas can experience such similar thoughts about an event that took place. The event that took place on September 11th, 2001 did not just affect Josh. It did not just affect Bianca, but it affected millions. But because an attack was made on 2 different cities, I only felt that it was fair to get 2 different outlooks from those 2 different people from those 2 locations.